Aphantasia, a condition with hidden advantages. Hello, I'm John, a Brit aged 79, living with my wife Beryl in Germany. I've just found out this year that there's a name for my odd condition. It's been variously described as thinking only in sentences or being unable to visualize. In my case, that means I remember things in the form of events, as words or short story, covering all the important points for me. This can get a bit wordy, a bit verbose, but it's the only way I have of remembering. When I mentioned to my wife Beryl that I just thought in sentences, she looked it up in the internet and came up with the expression aphantasia. Aha! There's an expression for my odd condition that I didn't even know I had. I first got an inkling of this, however, when my eldest son had a serious misunderstanding of me, the first and only one, I'm happy to say, and I solved it very easily by inviting to come round and have a talk and discuss what was on his mind. Following the advice of my wise wife, Beryl, I didn't say anything, I just listened. And I waited until he explained his problem. When he had finished, I walked him through the details that had caused this misunderstanding, and he said, "Oh, I had assumed that you blah, 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 blah." And then I had to explain to him that to assume makes an ass out of you and me. I then explained over about 5 minutes what had caused the misunderstanding, and he became very quiet and thoughtful. After a while, he said, "Give me a pencil and a piece of paper," and he started to draw a sketch. At Siemens, he gets this sort of information on courses. That is the Kleingehirn, the small brain, or cerebellum, and that's responsible for our instinctive reactions. This was my first introduction to the fact that I'm slightly different or belonging to a small minority, bear the convoluted thinking and emotions of other people, the other 99%. While I'm able to understand their motivation, it's not something I can get involved in. Too difficult in my non-emotional, detached state. So I must explain that my reference to advantages, which will be cropping up quite frequently, come from Rudyard Kipling's delightful Just So stories. Don't know whether you've read them, i.e., in this case, How the Elephant Got Its Trunk. The elephant's child, who had a most satiable curiosity, asked what the crocodile had for dinner, and he was directed to the great grey, green, greasy banks of the river Limpopo, all set about with fever trees, and had to kneel close to the jaws of the crocodile to hear the answer to his question. The jaws suddenly snapped shut on his short, boot-sized nose, and there followed a tug-of-war with squeals of "Lick my nose, you're hurting me," and his nose was stretched out into a trunk. On his journey home, confronted by his new long nose, he found lots of things that he could do with it. Advantages. So if I'm continually mentioning advantages with aphantasia, that is because I'm in a similar position to the elephant's child, being suddenly aware of something new and finding that this condition has certain advantages. I'd like to insist that aphantasia is a condition, not an illness, and for that reason I'm glad to say that to date not many people have been able to make a lot of money out of it. Trying to explain the effects of aphantasia is difficult because according to statistics it affects only 2 to 3% of the population. So as we're all individuals, there's little chance that my version of aphantasia would apply to the other 2 to 3%. But do let me know if there are some similarities. That would be really interesting. The majority, or 99.999% of the unaffected population, when the subject is mentioned, simply say, "You're unable to visualize." I can't imagine that. Exactly. Because you're trying to imagine not being able to visualize or imagine. I have much the same problem trying to imagine what it would be like to see things with my mind's eye, or to record a video of all the important points when I'm driving anywhere. However, there are hidden advantages to my version of aphantasia, such as being able to look at things objectively and devoid of emotions. So that's advantage number 2. Also, I'm an incurable optimist. Advantage number 3. If something goes wrong, I don't feel negatively about the occurrence or get depressed, as I really cannot develop these sorts of feelings. I'm devoid of most emotions, certainly negative emotions. So, being devoid of these negative emotions is advantage number 4. Even if I'm trying to verbalize an emotion such as, oh, that must be very frustrating or depressing, it doesn't help to translate that expression into a feeling. I rely on the wise prayer or meditation. God give me the strength to accept things that I can't change, the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to understand and accept the differences. In most cases, the only thing that I can change is myself. This also means that I can analyze problems without emotion and get on with solving them if I can. Advantage number 5. So I'm left with no alternative but to look for ways of improving the situation. Advantage number 6. And I derive a great deal of pleasure if I can create something positive out of a negative situation. It's almost more fun than if everything goes smoothly from the first place. Another advantage is my insatiable curiosity. Think of the elephant's child. I'm not sure that this is something personal or if it applies to all aphantasiacs. If it is, it's certainly an advantage. Advantage number 7. I get immersed, when I have the time, in this wonderful social media where I can keep up to date on philosophy, world politics, spirituality, technical advances, quantum physics, near-death experiences, global warming, etc., etc. The list is endless. For me, this is like being able to visit the universities of your choice, attend the lectures that you enjoy, and to do that at your leisure, without exams to have to prove that you've understood the subject. Advantage number 8. If you believe, as I do, in a supernatural, limitless, beneficial creator, which has nothing to do with religion or faith, doesn't matter what adjective you use, God, Allah, Jehovah, consciousness, universe, whatever adjectives you use, I think any thinking person and scientist must then come to the conclusion that there is a creative power behind all these wonderful things, the universe, our little planet, and even us as human beings. Quite remarkable. This is a big subject. I hope I'll be able to deal with it in a future contribution. But it does mean that I think every disaster, natural or man-made, can be used as an opportunity to change our existence for the better. I could go on at length about the advantages of being positive and optimistic and probably bore the pants off you. However, one advantage is that the subconscious, my subconscious part of the brain, has no sense, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and takes everything that I think literally, and then it tries to fulfill my thoughts. Advantage number 8. There's a mountain of information on this topic, particularly in self-fulfilling prophecies, either negative or positive. They've been scientifically proven to exist, and I could give you some examples about Berbel's paragliding accident, but I'll leave that for a later date. The other side of the coin is that when someone is kind enough to ask, "How are you?" I always spontaneously reply, "Great, super, excessively well." And my unconscious, my subconscious, accepts this effusive reply for gospel. And that keeps me out of any sickness or illness for as many years as I can remember. I don't get colds or flu or any infections or whatever. So, yeah, that's advantage number 9. Injuries, however, are not totally avoidable when living an active life. I used to be an officer in 29 Commandos, which is a Green Beret Special Forces unit. This involved an extremely active life. After retiring from the Marines, I continued being active together with Beryl. The sports that I've introduced her to and shared with her include sailing, more than 40 years, skiing, scuba diving, motorcycling, paragliding, gyrocopter, flying, trekking, golf, and so forth. And injuries are occasionally inevitable. There's a German expression, who rests rusts. We have a full program at our time of life, in summer sailing together and with friends in European waters, from the Mediterranean to the Baltic, in our catamaran, Amazing Grace. And in winter, we explore interesting cities in southern Europe and Morocco in our motor caravan. Advantage number 10. A non-emotional state. That sounds a bit cold-hearted, doesn't it? Not in practice. Probably a better description would be detached, almost looking at life from a standoff position. There are a lot of emotions that I can do without anyway, and I've never understood how they function. For example, jealousy, envy, hate, anger, greed. I can only eat one meal at a time, sleep in one bed, drive one car, sail one boat, live and enjoy one moment at a time. So, contentment and gratitude is advantage number 11. It also sounds cold-hearted that I'm not emotionally distressed at the death of a dear friend. I accept it as the inevitable part of this existence. There's enough proof of us continually being reborn to continue our education on Earth. You don't have to believe me. Look up the hundreds of near-death experiences in the internet. The chances that literally hundreds of people with different backgrounds, different ethnicity, different parts of the world, different cultures, would all report similar incidences with their NDE. So that's beyond a mere coincidence. At the funeral of the dear friend, however, I'm always moved to tears at the sight of the bereaved sorrowing, so empathy releases something that I would not normally feel. Advantage number 12. Non-emotional means, amongst other things, that I've never experienced fear. This doesn't mean to say I'm brave. Far from it. I have a healthy respect for dangerous situations, pain or injuries, and have even more respect for people who feel fear and conquer it. They're the really brave ones. What it does mean is that when I've been in life-threatening situations in the past, and even in the near present, I didn't have time to even the ability to imagine a painful, unpleasant end to my life. I'm absolutely concentrated with my tunnel vision on what I can do to solve the problem at the moment. And to date, this has always worked. Advantage number 13. When you sail long distances, there's always a chance that you'll get into some rough weather on some difficult situation. Aphantasia, a detached view. Advantage number 6. What it does mean is that when I have been in life-threatening situations in the past, I didn't have time or even the ability to imagine a painful and unpleasant end to my life. I'm absolutely concentrated with my tunnel vision on what I can do to make the situation better. And to date, this has always worked out. We've been sailing for the last 40 years together, and if you sail long several days and nights, then you might get into some difficult weather. If, as I do, you can accept that there's a creative being that created us and this wonderful planet Earth and the universe, just to mention a few small things, there's no reason to start doubting that everything will work out well in time. I believe that I chose this existence, so I'm not complaining. Most men have tunnel vision, not only when they're hunting, but also when they're concentrating on an interesting task. I appear to have an extreme version of this and have been known to drive past my wife without seeing her. I can't see the advantage of that, but there's probably a hidden one. Living without visualization means that I have to develop systems to keep track of things. However, if there's an interruption, I can easily lose track. The best thing known to man is a wife, advantage number 14, and I've been very lucky with Beryl in this respect. She, who knows how fragile my system is, joins in to help in the search, which can be more interesting than a detective story, and eventually turns up trumps, recovering the car keys or whatever it is I've lost this time, in the most unusual places. We have a great deal of fun together and laugh a lot. I refrain from mentioning to her that this ability goes back thousands of years, where the multitasking female sapiens had to keep track of children, animals, the few possessions they had, while tending the fire, gathering water, gathering edible things and sorting out the poisonous ones, multitasking in short. An advantage that all ladies have and makes them feel justifiably superior to us poor males. Having to keep an overview of my company's documents without being able to remember dates or names very well meant that I had to get a system where I have, at the beginning of any ring binder, a Dinner A4 index, or foolscap page index at the front, and I put the documents in according to terms or words that I would spring to mind, event related. And that means I can see everything in a glance and turn up the appropriate documents and then read the details that I need to find out. It's probably a practice a lot of people do anyway. Advantage number 15. Living without visualization means for me that my memory is very restricted as far as time is concerned. And I have to store things in my memory as events without regard to dates. I can't really remember what I did yesterday unless I build a sentence describing what happened. As far as dates are concerned, they have no meaning for me whatsoever, except the ones that you really should not forget, like your wedding anniversary and the birthdays of your children. So what's the advantage of that? Well, it means that looking at photos or reading the fare log, which is a non-nautical record of events that Beryl keeps when she's on board or when she's in the motor caravan, and she does it very well, records our sporting adventures, and we're able to rekindle and relive these adventures, even the ones in the most difficult and dangerous situations. We don't seem to have time in those situations to make photographs or video films. Advantage number 16. So what's the advantage of not being able to remember dates? Well, I wasn't aware of one until a hiking friend of ours said that after she'd been regaled with my memory problems, I used to bear a grudge against people that I thought had offended me or wronged me. But I thought about John. The past doesn't exist for him. And as he says, you can't change the past anyway, so forget it. Yeah. That solves you of 90% of the stuff that doesn't need to bother you. And as you can't change the future immediately, the only thing you can do is concentrate on the day. Carpe diem. It brought home to me that the past is not important as to when it happened, or rather more the wonderful things that you have experienced and the people you've met, and you record them as events. That's advantage number 17. I don't know if not taking yourself seriously is a part of being aphantasiac, or it might be a personal thing or purely British. If you share this trait, this ability, please let me know. When things go wrong, you can always have a good belly laugh at your own stupidity and that takes the sting out of most situations for me. Advantage number 18? I don't know. To compensate for my memory, I started a blog called cruisingsailorsYarns.com. cruisingsailorsYarns.com with hyphens in between. In it, I described trying to keep our memories alive by recollecting 3 pearls from every harbour, marina, or inlet that we've sailed into, or every town or city we've gone into when we're in our motor caravan. Pearl number 1 is, what's so special or unique about this place? Is there a local recipe that we can take with us? Is there a song? Or is there a joke associated with life here? We generally get the first 3 with a little help from the locals and the internet, but jokes we have to supply ourselves. Advantage number 19. So the poor harbour master is regaled with, hello, we've just arrived. Tell us what's so special about this place. Have you got a recipe? Have you got a song? Have you got a joke? And they generally are a bit overawed with that. If you have time, please look up Cruising Sailors Yarns. It was never intended to be about us. I had hoped that as everybody has had at least one adventure in their lives, they'd like to share it with others. So, if you'd like to present your little adventures, however small or comical, they don't have to be about sailing. We'd love to hear about it. And I'd like to pass it on to others if that's okay with you. Do I regret not having a mind's eye? Not really. Would I like to be able to visualize like everybody else? I don't think so. I'm not sure what I would lose. I certainly don't know what I would gain. I'm quite happy with what I am and what I've achieved in this life so far, despite this condition. If you have any comments about this video, I would love to hear them or view them and reply to them and share them with others. I'd be particularly interested to hear if your aphantasia helps you to be optimistic and remain positive. Bebel and I are having a great time in our 80s and leading a very full and active life. Did I mention that she got her paragliding license at the age of 70? What a woman, eh? There's so much to do, see and learn, just time is in short supply. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you and sharing your experiences. As you might have noticed, this is not really a very professional contribution because it's my first one. But I hope if we get some replies, I will be able to continue with a little more detail. That's all from us. Best wishes, John and Bebel.